Oh, hello, and welcome to Al Dente Rigor Mortis. I'm Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, the E stands for evil.
And I'm the gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. And tonight we have Goze-San's Bell. So it's another Kowabana translated creepypasta from a Japanese forum. Because it's anime. Woo! Let's dive into the initial recommendations. I'm going to partially recommend this one.
I'm going to not recommend this one.
Okay.
I'm going to partially not recommend this one.
Wait. Huh?
Yeah, that's right.
Like, I don't really want to recommend it, but I'm on the fence about it.
It's a low partial leaning towards not recommended.
Okay. Well, let's dive in and see why we thought so. So, like I said before, Goze-San's Bell is over on the Kowabana.net website for the English translation of it. So you can check it out there. And onto the rundown. So, Narrator-san, or Nair-san, as I'm going to refer to them moving forward.
Okay.
Well, because san is actually the honorific for like Mr. or Mrs.
Yes.
So, Nair-san.
Only for the
only for when we tackle Japanese creepypastas.
Of course, yes.
So Nair-san returns home during the summer holidays after being away for university and sees outside his old window, off into the distance, past the now removed small mountain that used to be there, to the larger mountain behind that, at the old temple his family used to visit. He recalls then the old temple had a strange cloth and rope bell that never rang and was very peculiar, even when his parents were very young. That night, Nair-san hears a deep bell noise coming from outside somewhere, and using his binoculars, observes several men out near the old temple trying to remove the bell. They end up dropping it, and the sound it makes is heard all across the local area, setting up a stir. Like, lights start popping on as people are waking up, dogs are barking. It's just like crazy. It's this weird, like, deep thrum that is heard across the countryside. When Nair-san looks again to see what's going on over at the old temple, the men are gone. The next day, he goes and visits the site to find that police and other people around the area are there. It looks like the men had run off, leaving their van behind. The old temple was no longer in use, and so it was likely that they were trying to salvage the bell for scrap metal. It was in the crowd of people that Nair-san met a friend's granny, who told him about the bell's history. It's called Goze-San's Bell, for families in the olden days would leave blinded children next to it in the hopes that a goze would arrive and take them away. Most of the children ended up dying of exposure, and the monks would have to deal with the bodies, like bury them and such, and would often tie the children's clothes around the pillars as a rite of mourning. He told his parents about this over dinner that night, and they said that when they were young, they heard that ghost children could be seen around the bell or following the Goze-San, and that the bell was covered by the dead children's clothes and rope to stop it from ringing because it drove people crazy when it rang. And that their parents would threaten them with the that if they didn't behave, then Goze-San would be summoned and take them away. So again, like Goze-San seems to be kind of like a boogeyman that the local areas kind of used. It's been some time since these events, and Nair is thinking back on it and wondering, what if those criminals didn't simply run off? Maybe when the bell rang, Goze-San showed up and took them away. What if? Finn. So that was Goze-San's bell. And I suppose we'll move on to everyone tolerates the Grand Inquisitions at this point. I've got a surprising amount for a Kowabana translation. Like I was kind of surprised. So I'm going to start with this one here. I remember asking me parents about why it looked like that when I was in elementary school, but they didn't know why either. And when they were kids, they called it the winding bell. So narrator's son is now going to have an Irish accent moving forward for me.
I was gonna say, I think you put the wrong accent there.
But in all seriousness, though, yeah, I think it's supposed to be like, I remember asking my parents, not asking me parents.
Yes.
Next one here. But then I suddenly a low, deep sound coming from somewhere. I think you meant, but then I suddenly heard a low, deep sound coming from somewhere. And then the next one. One of the local firefighters then asked when they were going to...
Actually, hang on.
Yes.
I'm gonna let you finish. Because like I was reading, I have one on that part too, but I didn't correct it the same way.
Interesting. Okay, let's hear it.
Mainly because I missed that part.
Nice.
I may have fabricated that word in
but then
there.
Was it maybe that? But then suddenly a low, deep sound coming from somewhere. I don't know. Like, yeah.
My problem with that was like, my problem with that sentence completely overtook the fact that there was no mention of hearing the sound at all. like what you said.
Yeah.
My problem with it is like it's saying that there's a low, deep sound coming from somewhere, and the first thing that they think it is the bell.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, like just saying it's a low, deep sound, it's very vague. It could be anything. If it said a low, deep ringing sound, then I feel like that'd be better.
Yeah, I mean, for the story's credit, it does tell us what they think it is, like that low sound is. They ask it, they question that it's a bell that they heard. So like we can ensue that like, oh, the deep sound coming from somewhere is a bell, since they're wondering that if it's a bell or not.
Well, you have to wait so long.
Oh yeah, yeah. You have to like reach across a period to a new sentence.
It's way over there.
It's so far away.
Yeah,
my brain just can't handle it. I'm sorry. But you're also, I would accept also your like correction or like your fix, because like that would also clear up, would properly clarify what the sound is.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna die on this hill in regards to this because like I think it's fine regardless.
I like how we're both Canadian
Yeah.
right now. It's like, I mean, I was like, oh yeah, it's so far. It's like, but I mean, in all seriousness, I do agree with you. It's like, yes, I agree with you too. I won't die on that hill either. Like we both like. We're just being argumental for argumental's sake.
Pretty much, yeah.
And then apologizing for it.
Standoff, so that's fine.
Yeah, and then exactly. It's a Canadian standoff. But yeah, so yeah, add like the low ring, like the ringing. I guess add ringing, and then also like that he heard the ringing. Because I guess it could also be like, but then I was gonna say but then suddenly there was a low, deep sound coming from somewhere. Like that could be also a way to do it if you miss that I. But anyway, yeah. Okay. I'll move on to the next one.
Okay.
It is equally funny. For the missed word, or for the misused word. One of the local firefighters then asked when they were going to do about the bell. I think you mean what they asked what they were going to do about the bell.
Yes.
Yep.
And then my next one here.
I gotta say that isn't equally as funny.
No, I know. I was just like, I thought it would be funnier.
I just put you on blast a little bit. That was not equally
Yeah,
as funny.
that is fair. I thought it was going to be a lot funnier when before I read it. All right. It wasn't quite caveman speech, which like I think is the funniest thing for when it comes to these sort of typos and such.
Mm-hmm.
Baraska is never going to like live that down.
No, never.
Yeah.
It kept happening.
Yeah. But anyway, moving on to the next one here. No matter where you look in Japan, you won't find Goze-San and his line of children following him. So I'm going to touch more on this in my actual thoughts, but because this is technically grammar, I think, shouldn't it be her? Because historically, it was blind women who became Goze-San.
Yes.
Yes.
And then right after that, the next sentence, but that night, those guys who tried to steal his bell accidentally rang it. Did Goze-San actually show up then? If so, where did he come from? And if he did, where did he take them? Again, just kind of change he to she, because
yep,
I'm pretty sure historically and culturally, Goze-San were women.
Well, and one of the previous sentences, the boy was handed over to another group, but the girl lived her life out as Goze-San.
Exactly. So it was a girl. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's my grammar inquisition. So, Mikey, D stands for evil.
All right. Well, you got the ones that I got. So what's left is a conjunction junction.
Yes. And next stop, conjunction junction. Doot, doot.
It didn't have the usual log to ring a bell either. It made me sad as I stared out the window at the temple. But then suddenly a low, deep sound coming from somewhere. And thankfully they were. It seemed they were unable to get the bell out of the building. It didn't have any walls, but instead had horizontal pillars surrounding all four sides, which made it impossible to get the bell out. But it could only be done when a blind child was born. And so, using the clothes of the children left behind by the bell, as well as straw rope, they wrapped it around and around the bell so that it could never ring again. But that night, those guys who tried to steal his bell accidentally rang it. And if he did, where did he take them? Finn.
Wow. That so it's like the bell wasn't actually there at the temple, and he looked at that temple like off in the distance, logging like kind of like longingly out the window, and then the guys are trying to steal the bell through, but can't get through the pill because of those horizontal pillars, but they need to perform some kind of a ritual involving dead children's clothing, but they inadvertently summoned the bell, and it took them away somewhere.
Scooped them right up and just flew up into the sky.
Yeah.
Who knows? Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes what happens when Mikey takes these random sentences throughout the story. Well, not random. Takes the sentences throughout the story that start with words that they probably shouldn't, like it's, ands, or buts. Because there's always better words to use.
Yes. But moving on to Gamer in Yellow.
Yes, me. I don't have much left, but we'll see. How early on was this? Very first sentence. Okay. First sentence.
Great start.
Yeah. The entire area was covered in mountains. The place where I grew up, everywhere you looked was nothing but mountains. So maybe it's like a translation or a dialect thing,
Mhm.
but it's like repeating itself. Also, the way that the place where I grew up feels a bit weird to me. Like you could change it so it's emphasizing but not repeating it in a way like the entire area was covered in mountains. That's where I grew up. Everywhere you looked was nothing but peaks and valleys. Like it's repeating it, but it's not actually repeating it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd allow that. Or even like, the entire area where I grew up was covered in mountains, nothing but mountains. Just like extra emphasized, like there's like was mountains, nothing but mountains
Yes.
everywhere.
I like that even better. Okay, so this part, you kind of... Did you bring this up? It doesn't matter. According to, how do you say this? Akun? A-K?
Akun.
Yeah, Akun. Yeah.
Okay, Akun. According to Akun's grandmother, long ago a blind boy and girl were in the area. They were both given to Goze-San. A boy was handed over to another group, but the girl lived her life out as Goze-San.
Mhm.
The bell was used frequently back then, but afterwards it became something that was only used to summon Goze-San. So up until this point, and honestly, even till the end of the entire story, I don't know what Goze-San is. And in this sentence specifically, I don't know what they're trying to get across, because like there's a blind boy and a girl, I'm assuming both blind. They were born in the area, and they were given to a blind woman who is referred to as Goze-San, because Goze is an ancient term for a blind Japanese woman, apparently. And often they were bards and played shamizans.
Like that's in my actual. Yeah, it's in my actual. Yeah, I basically you're saying exactly what I have in my actual thoughts later about because I learned about something cultural to Japan.
Okay, well you can cut that bit out. But
it's fine. No, you can take it over.
I just don't get what this whole thing is trying to say.
Yeah,
and I was gonna put it into actual thoughts, but like it's a grammar thing because I don't get any of it. Like, and the bell was only used to call the Goze-San over. Like it, as in it's a creature, or just it's a blind woman, and they use the bell to call her because she can't see. Like, I don't get it.
Okay, so it is kind of confusing, because I think it's a cultural barrier thing. Because like our go-to when you use a bell to summon something, because the way I think it also might be a translation issue. They're referring because we immediately think when to summon someone or to summon something, it's like to summon a demon, or to summon something like supernatural with the bell. But I think
mundane.
Okay. Well, I was thinking a supernatural thing when it mentions, because it keeps saying that a summon Goze-San, and then like the girl lived by herself, or lived out her life as Goze-San.
But they were given to Goze-San, like
so they were, because
boy and girl were given to Goze-San, and the girl became Goze-San.
Yes, because historically, Goze-San or the Goze were visually impaired or blind women who became musicians, and often organized, especially when there were large numbers of them in rural areas of Japan, to be able to like learn to live with a degree of independence and actually have a career. And usually it was music or massage.
Mm-hmm.
So like you said it earlier, it's basically a historical Japanese bardic order of that supports blind women.
Yes.
First off, that's awesome. That's badass.
Yes, it is.
But like, secondly, yeah, the way I kept interpreting, I thought Goze-San was like a monster that they summoned, but then it makes sense because like historically, like they probably would have used the bell to summon Goze-San to show up, like to come, like Goze-San would hear the bell and head that direction to meet with the temple or whatever for whatever reason they needed for. So
the bell is specifically just for like, we have a blind kid.
Yeah.
Then they hit the bell, and
then ring the bell, and then like and wait for and hopefully Goze-San will take the blind child away and take care of him, because we can't.
They could just like walk up to her house and be like, "Hey, we have a blind kid here. You want to take care of him?" And she's
That-
like, yeah, sure.
that assumes that that the Goze-San had like a home. Like maybe they like I don't know the specifics, but maybe they are wandering bards. Sort of like wandering monks that wander, like that they don't have a set home, so like they ring the Goze bell in the hope that there's a Goze-San nearby. But yeah, initially I was kind of under the impression, like for most of the story, I was under the impression that Goze man or like a monster of some kind.
Mhm.
And then I looked
Yeah.
up what Goze-San were, and I was like, oh, well, I guess this is like a nightmare version of what that is, maybe.
Maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very peculiar because like we don't get it seems like this is kind of my problem with the story. This story isn't scary. It's
Mhm.
whimsically creepy at best.
Yeah.
Because like the monster in quotes isn't bad at all. Like it seems to be doing good things. And like the worst thing is that like it might like it was used to scare children when they were like parents would use Goze-San, like the whole Goze-San like thing in this part of the country, anywhere in this county or whatever it is, as a way of like, oh, like, you know, like the Goze-San's going to get you if you keep misbehaving.
Oh no, I get to be taken away from my mean parents and learn how to play the shamisen. Oh no.
Yeah, well, that's that's the bad child's rebuttal, and then the child
Yeah, exactly.
and that's when the parents just like, all right, coming at you with the knives to poke at your eyes.
Yeah.
And then but then it also like later on it's like, but what if the Goze-San showed up, and where did it take those people, those criminals? It's like, even if it took them away, they were technically criminals, so fuck them.
And also,
Like,
if she's just like a mundane blind musician, how is she gonna take these criminals and take them away? Like, where's the magic in this? You know?
I think because Goze-San as an organization hasn't existed for like at least a century in at this point. Because apparently, according to Wikipedia, it kind of dropped off in terms of like its like trend, or it's like its influence, or it's like the group hasn't really existed the way it did since like the turn of the 19th century. So I think at this point, this has essentially this organization, or this entity, at least in this county, has become something of a supernatural boogeyman for the villagers, or for like the locals. But
maybe
like,
the quote unquote supernatural aspect is just like they rang the bell and then all of these blind women showed up. No, all these blind women showed up, but they're all like the blind dude from Rogue One, and they just beat the shit out of them.
Yes. Or it's like those creepy
their guitars.
Yeah. Or it's like the creepy ass witches from Paranormal Activity, the marked ones, where they're just like this badass. It's like basically a coven of Terminators. Like they will go down. But yeah, like it's I actually kind of like your idea. It's just all that blind monk from Rogue One. But yeah, like it's not really like the story itself does not present it in a like it kind of presents it in a very kind of like a weird boogeyman style thing, but like reading into it, I find it more interesting than scary. Like and there isn't anything like super aside from the ghost children, even the ghost children that like supposedly follow the like like walk around the bell, or like follow the Goze-San around. That seems like when you first see that, like that's kind of creepy. But like if they're not attacking you, or they're not actively like if they don't seem to be malicious at all, they're just following the leader, or they're just roaming around where they're just haunting around where they died. That just becomes more whimsical and sad than scary.
Well, scary, yes, but creepy, yes, still.
That's what I say. Like that's why it's like whimsically. The story is like more whimsically creepy than true scary to me.
Yeah.
The way it's presenting things, because even the whole boogeyman angle is kind of whimsically creepy, because it stems more from like a childhood fear rather than like actual fear.
Mm-hmm.
But Yeah, I was also kind of like like, what the hell? What is Goze-San? And then I looked up, I was like, oh, that's actually pretty cool. But why is that? Why is it not like kind of like that in the story? Like, I feel like there needed to be, especially since grandmother, the granny describes that the girl lived her life out as a Goze-San.
No,
So
see, that's the problem. As Goze-San.
as Goze-San, yeah.
So if this was worded like long ago, a blind boy and girl were in the area, and they were given to the Goze-San.
No. They were given to.
Hang on.
Oh, yeah.
I'm saying if this was the correction, given to the Goze-San, which makes it sound like it's either a creature or it's a group of people. When you say Goze-San, it's one person. The boy was handed over to another group, but the girl lived her life out as a Goze-San. If you said the and then a, it makes it sound like it's a group and she's a member of the group now. But if just Goze and Goze, it sounds like she like osmosis or whatever into
like metamorphized into I get you. I think this might be a translation issue too, because sometimes I think I'm not 100%, but I think this feels like it could be a translation issue where
for sure
in Japan they don't use the like a the or a for certain like honorifics or names.
Yeah.
Like that. So
like direct translations, it's not necessarily gonna come out clean,
Yeah.
And I get that. I'm not giving the sword too much sass for that.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, this is sort of like this is sort of combined like my actual thought thing with your grammar inquisition, because like we're touching on the same thing here.
Yeah.
Of like, what is Goze-San? And like, oh, Goze-San's kind of cool. Like that's actually pretty cool. Like the whole like situation and like the organization stuff. But yeah. Do we get why? So we got your issue kind of laid out, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. And then my next and final one. It's dialogue, but fuck you. Okay.
Ow!
First off,
I feel okay. Rude.
Because I still think this is valid.
Okay.
Long time no see, I said. This is talking. This is with Nair-san talking to Akun, I believe. Yes.
Yeah.
Long time no see, I said. Oh, it's you. They're saying someone tried to steal the bell. What a terrible world we live in, she said. Can they even sell something like that? I asked. After the war, there were people that came around to buy our bikes for their iron junkyards, but maybe they wanted to sell it to one of those TV programs that collects all sorts of junk. I wouldn't pay money for Goze-san's bell. Goze-san's bell? So, because of the back and forth, it's Nair, grandmother, Nair, grandmother, Nair, grandmother, Nair.
Yeah.
Which makes it sound like Nair doesn't know what Goze-san is? Hang on, wait.
Because Nair doesn't know what Goze-san is.
Hang on.
Okay, yeah.
I'm going to color code these or something. Hang on. I want to see if I just fuck this up. Because the way I read it, it sounds like the way it's supposed to be is the grandmother says Goze-san first.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Here we go. So, yeah, the problem is on these parts where maybe they wanted to sell it to one of those TV programs that collects all sorts of junk, is what Nair says.
Yeah. Yep.
And then the grandmother says, I wouldn't pay money for Goze-san's bell.
Mm-hmm.
Man, how did I fuck this up? Nair, grandmother, Nair, grandmother, Nair, grandmother, Nair. I was so certain that switching... Oh, really?
Now, to your defense, it could have used some bits where it's like I said, she said sort of thing to help differentiate.
Which it does at the beginning, but
it does at the beginning, but like yeah. And then it doesn't just for like I guess expediency or for efficiency.
I was so certain that it was Nair that said I wouldn't pay money for Goze-san's bell. And then the grandmother was asking what the hell I was talking about. Yeah.
But no, it's not.
Did I wake up in a different like reality where that
Yes.
was okay?
I went a completely different thing on like what you're like. I was like, did I wake up in the morning thinking about P. Diddy?
Yeah.
Like the Kesha song lyrics?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I know.
That's flabbergasting me. How I screwed that up so hard.
I think we got there. It's not. It's like you goofed.
Yeah, I goofed good.
Okay.
God damn it. So yeah, I don't have any more.
Okay. This is gonna be great to edit.
just cut that whole bit out.
Yeah, I was okay. So, all right. Then I suppose we move on to actual thoughts. So I'm gonna start with the image. Yeah, it's a temple in the woods. It isn't the temple in the woods that like from the story, obviously, but it at least kind of gives you a good like kind of a descript like kind of gives you a non-evasive image of what the temple likely looked like in the story.
Mhm.
So, yeah, again, kind of spot on for using a title card that kind of shows something that's in the story, but doesn't spoil anything. So,
I mean, it wouldn't be a spoiler even if they straight up showed the bell.
yeah, although I kind of wish it showed the bell because
Yeah.
I had such a fucking hard time like visualizing that bell. Like I'll
Really?
get to it. I'll
Hmm.
get to it in a sec. I'll get to it. I think it's like the third my third comment here. Actually, no, fuck it. We're gonna do it now. So we're gonna do it now. Hang on. Where the hell is it in my notes?
Good time. I'm still trying to wrap my head around how I did a goof.
Okay, here it is.
Mhm.
So this is like later, really late in the story, but it's like on windy days they'd cover their ears and complain that all they could hear was the sound of the bell, driving them crazy. And so, using the clothes of the children left behind by the bell, as well as straw rope, they wrapped it around and around the bell so that it could never ring again. So this is when the story actually explains that it is in fact a bell, because early on, like right like near the beginning of the story, we get this: when I was a child, there was a bell at the temple that looked after me.
The bell looks after him.
That's kind of odd. Anyway, I honestly thought I thought it was at the temple that looked after him. So like maybe it was like they it's like a daycare at the temple. But getting back to my thing, like and bell is done in quote, like has quotations around it. And then the next sentence is, there's a reason I write it like that. And that's because it was made of cloth and rope bound around and around. It didn't have the usual log to ring the bell either. I am so glad the story did eventually get there to explain that this was a bell that was just wrapped in cloth and rope, because I'm not going to lie, I spent way too long scouring the internet looking for Japanese cloth and rope bells. Or trying to find images of a temple bell not made of metal.
Wow.
Well,
it does straight up say that it wasn't, like in the quote that you brought up, it says it's not made of metal. It says it's made of cloth and rope, but it's not.
But it isn't. Yeah, exactly. But
also,
it makes sense why he says that, because him and his parents have never seen what's inside of the cloth. So
for all they know,
it was just yeah. Now I think this it might be a translation issue, because like the way they said that, it's like I'm sure it's supposed to mean like they've never gotten a look inside of it and it's never made a noise, but it's shaped like a bell, but it's covered in these ropes and wrappings. But like, yeah, the way that first sentence is, it's like it was made of cloth and rope bound around and around. So I was just envisioning this bell-shaped cloth and rope like thing, like knot or something. But yeah, I was very confused about how the bell, what the bell actually looked like.
I just envisioned a bell,
yeah,
but covered in cloth and then it has rope going round and round to keep the cloth in place.
Yeah.
So it still looks like a bell. In fact, take it more like a Hershey's Kiss type
Yeah.
thing. Like
Except
the
bound
bottom
in
is completely covered, so you can't see the bell inside type thing.
Yeah. Because if this is like, it's either one of the enclosed bells, like, because there's two. From what I saw from my extensive scouring on Google Images, there are like two types of like temple bells in Japan. There's like the ones that are slightly smaller. They're like basically like a metal ball with a cup with like two holes in them, where like they closed the sort of the ball around the ringer inside. Like there's that kind of bell, which is sort of like a ball shaped thing, and then there's what we usually like what we think of a bell, which is like the sort of the
A bell shape.
upside down pail with with either a ringer inside, or I guess in this case like they're usually hollow because they use a log. Like in temples in Japan, they have like a log that they swing at the bell, kind of like a gong style thing.
Yeah.
But so yeah, like that's probably more like what the bell actually is, but it could be also the more like the ball chime bell one. So
this is kind of weird because this morning I was like, before recording and everything, I went on the YouTubes, and because like yesterday in Warframe, Dude Paradox.
Sorry, Brownie, we're talking about Warframe.
Just for a minute. Doobie Paradox came out, and there's new Shazam, and I love playing the Shazams. And the new Shazam sounds like a bell. And this morning, I was checking out a YouTube channel that I learned most of my Shazam songs through, and he was talking about the new Shazam and how it sounds like a bell, and he was like bringing up reference to these exact types of bells that you are talking about in reference to the sound of that.
Gamer, we've established this. You're the main character.
I don't know why I am though. Why me?
I don't know. Hey, at least it's not like John dies at the end.
Oh god. I mean, that might be the case anyways.
Yeah.
Just because I'm the main character doesn't mean I have plot armor.
No. But yeah, I'm glad that I'm kind of glad, but also like I'm tickled the fact that we all kind of like, what the hell is this? Like, is this bell made of metal or is this like wrapped around something? Like,
oh no, I was fine with it.
No, we're all fine with it, but like I was like partially confused with like just how why like how does this work?
Yeah. Well, I originally visualized it like a regular bell that we have here, but covered in fancy cloth.
Yeah.
And rope binding it. Whereas later, it's described that they use the clothes of the children left behind on the bell to wrap it, and it's like, well, that's a completely different visual.
Yeah, because like that's much more like multicolored, like either maybe multicolored, but or like at the very least like there's different textures and there's different like it's
more
like
patchy.
almost like patch. It's like it's like patchwork.
Yeah.
It's not like a clean cloth, like not like a clean like whole cloth kind of thing. But
the way that I first saw the whole bell situation, specifically because it says like quote unquote bell.
Yeah.
And like it keeps talking about how we haven't seen the inside. I imagined that this bell was a prison for a creature.
Honestly, I was definitely expecting that the inside of this thing was actually like the dead children.
No, I imagined it was a live creature that is bound inside the bell through some ritual.
That's what Goze-San is. It's actually like inside. It's the creature inside the bell,
sure,
like literally caged by the bell. Yeah, no.
Yeah, as soon as I started describing the bell, I'm like, I'm calling it. That's going to be that. It's not, but I wish it was.
Yeah. Well, again, we all had like kind of different like takes on the bell. It seemed. So. But I'm glad the story did eventually get there and explain what the bell was. Like what, like it just took it took like a 3-page story to tell us that, like, finally tell us what the bell was. Like aside, like it wasn't just cloth and rope. It was a bell tied up and wrapped around with cloth and rope. And the cloth was made from the dead children's clothes. Like
I'm glad you
Okay.
said clothes, not just made from the dead children.
Yeah, just made from the dead children. Yeah, the monks would like skin them alive, and then
Yeah.
yeah. I said cloth, not vellum.
I see. Yes.
Vellum being leather that was used for scrolls, and sometimes it was human skin.
I really thought you said used for squirrels, honestly.
God damn it!
Why?
All right. Anyways,
Brain's not working right today.
apparently
Hey, you're supposed to agree with me. Asshole.
Yes.
Oh,
Welcome to
you're
our
fine.
show. Do you want me to lie or tell you the truth?
Yes.
Okay. With that out of the way, I'm going to go back to my actual thoughts and start at the beginning now.
Oh, okay.
Because like I had to get the bell thing out there because we mentioned it from the image and such. So I'm going to start with this one here. My old room had turned into something of a closet, but when I looked out the window, the familiar scenery had changed, and I could now see the temple with the bell. The temple sat on top of a mountain, but there used to be a smaller, undeveloped mountain in front of my window that blocked view of it in the past. Man, the Japanese development and infrastructure industry does not mess around. They leveled a mountain?
Yeah.
Now, I wonder if like they didn't actually level the mountain like down to the ground, like down to like to the rest of the terrain. I wonder if they merely like deforested it so that you can actually so now you can see the other mountain past the trees on the other mountain.
Or it's not
'Cause-
even a mountain and it's just a hill.
I think in Japan, like I mean they maybe they reference like large hills and stuff to mountains. But yeah, or maybe again it's a translation issue maybe. Because like I was like, damn.
Yeah, I'd be more concerned that the mountain's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Like
Now
if
that
I
said, like
was there.
that said, like it's either like that it was actually more of a hill that they just like leveled down to like ground level, or it could be. I think it might be like the deforestation on the hill, so like it's more barren, so
Yeah.
like you actually see past it, because like that's a thing that seems a little bit more logical. Like they're developing the mountain to have like homes and stuff like that, so they've cleared all the trees off of it.
Yeah.
But
See, if it just mentioned that all the trees were cut down, so now I could see the temple. That makes more sense.
Yeah. And continuing with the mountain here, this missing mountain.
We're done with the grammar, by the way.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
Honestly, that was originally just like, man, the industrial, the development and infrastructure companies of Japan do not fuck around. They leveled a mountain. Like that's impressive.
Mm-hmm.
But no, kind of back on the mountain here. Seeing the mountain gone reminded me that we'd never be able to catch bugs there again. Never be able to eat from the chocolate vines again. I'm sorry, what chocolate vines? So I learned about a new kind of fruit today.
Are you serious?
It's called akebia, or in this case, akebia quinata, an edible fruit containing a sweet white flesh. Flavor varies greatly in akebias, even within the same species, with some individuals displaying a complex flavor profile resembling a mixture of banana, passion fruit, and lychee, with others being mild or even insipid, flavorless. The insipid akebia varieties have the flavor intensity of dragon fruit. Akebia is often mentioned in Japanese literature, where it is evocative of pastoral settings. Although the akebia commonly refers to a 5-leaf species, the 3-leafed species is used in much in the same way for novelty food, medicine, and for vine material. It is commonly called chocolate. I fucking hate you. It is commonly called chocolate vine in Japan. Interesting.
No mention of it tasting like chocolate at all.
I maybe as part of like one of the flavor profiles, it tastes like chocolate. I don't know.
Yeah, it doesn't list all of them. Yeah. Fair.
And that was directly quoted from Wikipedia. like the first 2 paragraphs I wrote or I read there. So yeah, thanks. I learned about a new fruit that I had never heard about, and like looking at it, I was like, huh, that is a very unique looking fruit. It also made me wonder, it's like, have I seen this before in anime somewhere? Because I know like a lot of anime, like when they have like giant like plates of fruit or food and stuff like that, you sometimes see like weird shaped like purple like fruit and stuff like that.
Like when Goku goes to town and just eats
Or
everything.
even in Digimon and stuff like that. And I just assumed that the purple fruit was like just because it was Digimon World. But like maybe it was actually chocolate vine.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. But because they have purple bananas in Digimon in like the first season of Digimon. So maybe it's supposed to be like chocolate vine. Anyway. And I'll move on to the next one here. They managed to get it out of the shed, but then it fell back down again. Oh, that's not the whole thing. Sorry. The pair covered their ears. 3 seconds later, I heard the sound too. Gong. Birds flew off in a panic, and several dogs barked. Numerous lights in the area also turned on. When I looked back through the binoculars, the people were gone. And then a little bit later, we get this. The police had apparently finished their investigation as well. The criminals had abandoned their car and taken off. They didn't take anything, so the police and Temple would alert the local council to what had happened, and that was that. So before the end of the story, I had this idea. What if they didn't simply run off? Maybe there's a whole other part of this story that we don't get because narrator-san wasn't able to observe it when the criminals were attacked or spirited away by the ghost children. Like, that sounds like a horror scenario to me, even with the setup of being like some poor folk looking to salvage some iron scrap, and they go and like they figure, oh, this abandoned this unused temple, and that bell's not being used. We can get some quick cash for that. Oh god, we're being attacked by spirits bound by the bell.
Whoops.
Yeah, Vossen, anyone? And then the end of the story happened. The police claimed that they got scared and ran off. But what if? And I was like, oh, good. The story is on the same level as I am. It's like that there was something a little bit deep. There may have been another part of the story that we weren't able to read because we're following Nair-san. Which I kind of like the sort of like out of context, like we don't get all the details because like we're following one perspective.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I definitely think I could use this like kind of basic premise of like from the thieves' point of view anyway, to run a horror scenario where like you guys are where the characters are breaking into it like an old abandoned temple, trying to steal like scrap metal for money, and then they accidentally they screw around with the wrong piece of metal, i.e. the bell. So and then my next one here. There were times where it was difficult to raise children in poor villages, and the number of mouths to feed had to be reduced. Apparently, when a child was born to a family that couldn't feed it, they'd crush the child's eyes and then ring the bell. The trip with Goze-San might be tough, but in a time of little joy, the destination was treated far more importantly. Before long, those parents unable to poke out their own children's eyes left them by the bell for Goze-San to take away. Of course, most of them froze to death first. The chief monk found countless children frozen to death by the bell. So he wrapped their clothes around the pillars of the shed in mourning. You know, I don't mean to understate something probably very obvious, but it seems to have really sucked to live in feudal Japan based on nearly every Japanese urban legend and creepypasta we have touched on that also touches on historical periods.
Yeah.
I'm
It's pretty
sure
scary, yo.
I'm sure it was harsh living like all over the place. But damn Japan. You take it a step no wonder you have so many scary and fucked up legends in your folklore
Mm-hmm.
based on just like human suffering. Like fuck.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, it was just like Jesus Christ. It's like we have too many mouths to feed. All right, I'll take our newest born and just crush their eyes or stab their eyes out and then drop them off at the bell. Hopefully this organization of blind musicians will give this child a chance, or they'll just freeze to death. Small mercies. Jesus. Obviously no judgment, but like just as somebody in the modern day looking at this, yeah, it was a different time, and like looking at it now, I'm just like, fuck.
Even like English medieval times was like,
nowhere else was better. Like there were everywhere else was harsh. It just seems like Japan takes it like it just seems it's just mainly because like we've been reading a lot of Japanese urban legends that are based off of like historical tragedies and sorrow. It's just like, damn Japan.
Yep.
Like, goddamn. But I'll move on to the next one here. Before long, people started to claim they could see the spirits of children around the bell, or that they could see lines of them following Goze-San. This sounds both whimsical and creepy. This is kind of what I was saying earlier, where like the story isn't scary, really, per se. To me, it's more like whimsically creepy. Like I think I would find seeing ghost children around a bell creepy, and then even like the ones like that are following a Goze-San as they walked around. Like if I saw like a bunch of like little ghost children, I would be creeped out by that initially. But then as the story kind of doesn't seem to allude at all, there's nothing like malicious about it. So it would probably just be like whimsical and sad that there are ghost children playing follow the leader around Goze-San, or just hanging out and haunting the bell, the shed and the bell. Yeah, that's just an observation of the story. Like while I was reading, it's like I find it interesting, but it's not scary. But it's got like a spook element in that there is mention of ghosts or like potential like supernatural elements in the story, but it's all like hearsay. It's also like the story itself, like both, I guess, physically and like metaphorically. This story, like the way it's being told to us, like the several points in the story, like the spookiness of the story, it's all kind of distanced from us because of how far narrator is from the mountain, but also like it's talking about things that were from a bygone era, and even from like back when like a grandmother was young, or like the parents were young, they were talking about these local legends and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's all very like kind of distanced. So like it kind of loses the super spookiness of a story like this, or like a creepypasta, because like narrator's not in any danger. Narrator's literally just a bystander writing down what's happening to the actual like protagonists of the story, which are the criminals.
Yeah, like any potential fear is 2 layers deep.
You
know?
And so at this
we
point,
are super safe, because if they're safe, we're sure as hell safe.
Yeah. So it's not like bad, because like the story, like the information that we're getting from the story is interesting to me, but it's not scary. Like I kind of feel like Mikey or you, gamer, where like when you guys deal with like a dream sequence story in the story.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, this isn't, except I'm like also don't hate it. Like it's not bad. It's just I have to acknowledge that this isn't scary at all. Then we get to this part here, which did kind of invoke some childhood trauma in me, because again, this is the year of like me familiarizing with with something in a story. When my parents were kids, their parents often told them that if they did something naughty, that they'd have Goze-San take them away, or scream that they'd ring Goze-San's bell. Yet they didn't once think that any of it could have been true. It's good to know that no matter the time period or global location, parents always scare their kids into behaving with tales of some innocuous group trying to take them away. Looks at my own childhood trauma experience with the threat of the Bad Boys Club.
Are you gonna elaborate?
uh
You want to relive that trauma for us?
it's really not like that big of a trauma. Like when I was younger, I misbehaved and my dad threatened to take me to the Bad Boys Club. He never once elaborated what that meant, but I always but that scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Because of my own imagination. Like you guys know my imagination as is. Like now.
Yeah.
Imagine what I was like when I was 8.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was
All those assumptions are bad.
it was basically like the way the vagaries I got, I've always envisioned it being like basically like kid prison.
Yeah.
Or so like and then like later on in like life I found out about or like probably like a few years later I found out about juvie. And that's how I envisioned Bad Boys Club being.
Mhm.
So but yeah, it's good to know that no matter where you are and when you are in this world, there are parents that will threaten their children into obedience with a group that will take them away if they're not if they're naughty.
Yes.
There's some solace in that childhood trauma. But I digress. I am actually done for my actual thoughts. So, Mikey, these stands for evil.
All right. So, my first quote here is when I was a child, there was a bell at the temple that looked after me. So he was saved by the bell.
Wow.
When I wake up in the morning, that's all I knew about the song. It was the first line. Yeah. Yeah, I was a little confused. I let it pass, but like I was like, okay. I guess it means that like either he's orphaned or as we find it later, okay, maybe it was like some kind of a daycare that the temple, like the monks at the temple provide.
But the thing is, he says he was. It looked after him, so. But there's no mention of him being an orphan.
No, but that's like that was like my go-to. Like, okay, we don't like maybe
Yeah.
he was an orphan, and then like quickly that vanished, and they're like, okay, maybe it was just a daycare, or like something that like the local temple like provide as a service. So just like take care of your kids for a while. Sorry, continue.
Well, but for it to sort of gel into the story, it would make more sense for him to be an orphan, as you pointed out, because the explanation of Goze-San is that they sent a blind boy and a blind girl. The boy was sent off.
Yeah.
But the girl became a Goze-San. So the only way, like, it would be much better if he was the boy, or
that would have been
yeah.
If it had been revealed that like he was actually the boy from the story.
And he's using the binoculars to to look over there while he's blind.
I
don't know about that, man.
Yeah, maybe not that.
I can see the temple from here. Wait, I can see? I can see like the ethereal shape of what looks like a temple.
Wow.
Is the site.
But I mean that isn't
Yeah, the thing is that would have been better if this went somewhere and it explained a bit more about how the temple looked after him, unless it literally just got rid of thieves all the time. So there's no what is it?
I think what we're missing here is that the story doesn't like give us a clear version of it, but I think what the story is trying to say is basically just like this is effectively like the church they used to go to. Like
Okay.
this is the temple they used to visit and stuff like that, and now it's no longer in use because like as he's gotten older, like things have changed because like as seen by the mountain that was reduced to nothing by development,
Or deforested, we don't know.
yeah, or deforested, yeah. Like
Yeah.
I think that just I think effectively this is the effectiveness of like it was not mistranslated, but it's translated in a way that because it's in English now, like some of the context is kind of missing, but it's supposed to mean that like, oh, like this temple that has this weird bell, like that's the temple I used to visit as a kid, like with my family.
Mhm.
Not the bell of this temple was looking after me.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Okay.
So my next actual thought here is about the ending and how it just goes out and says, but that night, those guys who tried to steal his bell accidentally rang it. Did Goze-San actually show up then? If so, where did he come from? And if he did, where did he take them? The police claimed that they got scared and ran away. But what if? And this whole thing is like, well, if you have to ask the question, then nothing happened.
Sure. Like
Uh,
yeah.
That he
like
knows of.
Yeah, that he knows.
Yeah. Well, it is just one of those things where if it's left to the reader to draw their conclusions, then just having this at the end, um, I feel like the last bit ruins it. If, of course, there was anything there, but as we know, this is a really mundane story to begin with. So,
Again, unless like the way this goes on is more of a supernatural angle because maybe again I feel like the story does need a little bit more of a punch about like the Goze-San thing's cool, angle's cool, but like you've brought up, it's sort of makes this whole mundane because it's just a person, like it's a human, like a regular bland person. But like, what if like the girl who was taken in by the became Goze-San, like it seems like there was something like there's something we're missing in this story because like everyone's afraid of this bell and when it rings. So it's like, where's the bit in the story where like something bad happened at the end of Goze-San's life to make her become like something horrible or like boogeyman-ish? Like maybe she started taking children. Maybe there's like part of the legend that we're not seeing, where part of it is like that, like something happened, or she started like as she got older, she became more twisted and evil, and then like the monks had to like basically bind her to the bell or something. But like we don't get that. Like that's what like I'm kind of it does feel like we're missing something in the story for it to be more spooky or creepy.
You're not wrong.
Yeah.
By the way, is my mic sound okay? I turned to look out the window and my mic flew off my head and smashed to the ground.
Oh no. Yeah, no, it sounds fine. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't even hear it.
You didn't hear it fall, really?
No, I didn't even, you bring this up is the first time I've even like noticing something happen.
Oh wow, okay. I guess it falling to the ground doesn't sound like words.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So the only other thing is what I finally found the word for what I was looking for. So the bell keeps the crime rate low in the area?
Yeah. Well, as long as the crime is trying to steal metal from that temple, from that particular temple.
Very specific.
It's very specific. But then again, it was a real big problem after the war, like after World War II.
Okay.
because that's like historically like they were probably like looking for iron, like anything that had iron or metal, so they could kind of help boost the economy or something. So
That seems like the monks just put up some like supernatural security on the temple.
So they hired the supernatural task force.
Yeah, basically. Wait, didn't we have like
Like-
a Japanese branch of them named?
It was just Supernatural Task Force Gaiden
Oh, okay, there you go.
from like last week.
Gaiden.
Yeah, Gaiden, which means I think it just means next in Japanese. Like for like when you do it for titles, like it's like Ninja Gaiden, it's just Ninja Next. Hang on, what's
Ninja
Gaiden
again.
mean? Yeah, what's Gaiden mean in Japanese? Oh, it's literally it means side story or tale. So ninja tale or ninja side story. So
where's the ninja main story?
Or guys. West Gaiden.
West Side Story. How dare you?
Whoa, actually, Dave, or Gamer, you're not the only one asking where's Ninja main story, because the most common thing that people ask on Google, why is Ninja Gaiden called Ninja Gaiden?
It sounds cool.
The title literally means ninja side story, but the game was not intended as a spin-off of any prior work, according to an interview with developer Masato Kato. When deciding how to translate Ryukenden into English, the staff chose Ninja Gaiden because it sounded cool.
Yeah, I knew it.
That is hilarious. Also, not this story. I'm sorry.
Oh, damn.
But yeah. So I also actually like SNTF Gaiden actually makes sense now, because it's SNTF side story in Japan. Side story.
That one actually does make sense.
Yeah. Oh God.
All right.
Yes.
So that's into my actual thoughts.
Okay. All right, then Gamer, your actual thoughts.
What I have left of them anyways.
Yep.
So my first one, this is still relatively early on. But basically the story starts as talking about temples and mountains and a weird bell that can't be described yet.
An indescribable bell.
Yeah. When I was a child, there was a quote-unquote bell at the temple that looked after me. There was a reason I write it like that. That's because it was made of cloth and rope and bound around and around. It didn't have a usual log to ring the bell either. As I got a bit older and started watching anime, like right at that point, I'm like, okay, now I have a frame of reference for the timeline now. Yeah. Thankfully, it's very early, but it is a bit shocking of a jump, because like all the talk before it sounded like it was in ancient times, and then all of a sudden anime.
Yeah, and then because like even again like in Japan, like even in the modern day, like at least based on anime, my own experiences of like anime and other like film culture and stuff like that in Japan, even in the modern day, they go to these like temples and stuff like that. Again, much like us Westerners go to church and such. And it is very like they're steeped in historical like locations and in like and kind of sometimes even in rural like in nature and stuff like that. So it is like kind of like stepping out of the modern day into like feudal Japan, because they don't modernize the temples as much.
Yeah, and I get that. I'm just saying for the story.
Yeah.
Because we've been reading stories lately that focus primarily on stuff that happened in ancient times, that was my default.
Yeah.
That this is in ancient times right now, but it's not.
Mm-hmm. Now, looking at the Ikkyu-san, or
yes.
Is it called Ikkyu-san?
I'm sure we're saying it wrong, but that's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. The first episode did air in 1975, so when he was a kid, he could have been a kid from like 75 to like the 80s.
Yes, but still not feudal times.
Yeah, it's still not medieval times or like feudal era. So,
Indeed.
Yeah.
The next morning, well, it was closer to lunchtime, really. But when I woke up, my mother asked me if I'd heard that sound last night. I couldn't be bothered explaining everything I'd seen, so I vaguely answered and then went back up to my room to have another look through the binoculars. What a dick. Like,
Also,
why wouldn't he say? He didn't say that he
Yeah.
has any disdain for this place or his family.
Yeah,
Why is he
what-
being a dick?
yeah, it is very odd. Like,
Fuck you,
couldn't be.
man.
Also, like, did we really need the like from a writing point of view? Did we really need like next morning? Well, actually, it was more like afternoon. Like, let's say the next afternoon when I woke up, like, or next at noon the next day. Like, did we really need? Yeah,
I get it, because for me, morning is when I get up. So if I get up at 2 o'clock, 2 o'clock
Morning.
in the morning, I'm having breakfast at 2. That's breakfast.
Fair.
But yeah, it kind of adds a little bit of character, I guess,
I guess,
because
yeah.
it's showing that he's lazy, I suppose.
That it just makes him sound like a punk. Like when he's like, I couldn't be bothered to tell her all the details, so I just said something vague and then went up my room.
Yeah, but meanwhile, he's like out of university, isn't he?
Yeah.
So he's not like angsty teen, but he has angsty teen energy.
Yeah. Well, I
For
mean, he
some
could just be like layabout. Well, probably not layabout university student, because like he's not out of university. He's just on summer vacation, like coming home. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He's just still hanging on to his angst.
yeah. Hey, we both know someone who has never gotten rid of their edge. So
I mean, he just does it as a bit at this point.
does he though?
He's not actually an edgelord. It's literally a bit.
Okay.
It's because everyone just says he is, and he likes evil. He likes the bad guys. He likes the
Yeah.
bad boys. That's what he likes.
Yeah. He's definitely a fan. He's definitely a member of the Bad Boys Club.
Yeah.
There we go. Brought it around.
Mm-hmm. Nice. But I shall move on. And I talked about the last one, actually, because the last one is basically just like, after reading the whole story, I'm like, but who was Goze-San?
It literally, very much like it's like
I had a very
Goze-San.
but who was phone kind of
Yeah.
reaction to it.
Yeah.
But through our discussion, I understand what everything is now. It's just
Yeah.
the words that are there do not do that.
It would have been nice if they had just explained what Goze-San was culturally, but again, it might just be like this is a translation of a story that was posted on a Japanese centric like forum or like text chat place or like text server kind of thing. So, or like one of those, like I think it's like 2chan or something like that, maybe even. So, like culturally, they probably know what Goze-San is more like than a Westerner would. So,
Yes,
like it's more commonly like common knowledge than for us. So,
but that may have to be something added into the translation because we're dumb Westerners.
yeah, like there could have been
We
like
don't know.
well, yeah, like the first mention of Goze-San could have been like in brackets, like what the Goze-San like organization was, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just to help, like, kind of, because I mean, we kind of see it, but like because we just have the name and no context to it, we kind of just have to assume what it is ourselves, unless we actually look it up. So,
And as I said before, the way that the name is referenced, it's not talking about it like the Goze-San as in like a group of people. It just sounds like it's one thing.
yeah, it sounds like a creature or an entity that takes blind children. Like it sounds scarier without without context.
Yeah,
Honestly,
Googling it
like
may have wrecked it. Honestly,
maybe, but like at the
If you
same
just took it
time,
at face value.
I feel like the story should have like done like traditionally. Goze-San is like an organization. This Goze-San though was different. It was a lot more like maybe there's something like more sinister to this Goze-San.
Like the creature was a normal
It-
human as a Goze-San, but like shit happened, and then they're still technically a Goze-San, but they're also a weird spirit.
Now they are the Goze-San of this of this area. That is now like that name is no longer considered like something like generously good or inherently good. It's now something that's been twisted by the actions of what happened.
Or like the story could be the reason. The story and the creature could be why the Goze-San aren't a thing anime because of some event that happened that caused this. I know it doesn't say that. I'm saying it could be.
I also don't like that because like the Goze-San as an organization, like it did decline after like the 20th century, like at the turn of the century. Like I don't like the idea of like supernatural shit being responsible for real historical things. Like I
mean,
tend to step away from that like kind of way of thinking because like that's sort of weird and bad.
yeah, I
Um,
suppose.
the way I kind of took this, the more I think about it, I think so. Do you guys remember the movie Darkness Falls?
No.
So in Darkness Falls, it's in this small like New England town. I think it's New England, where they have a boogie. The town has a local boogeyman called the Tooth Fairy, who was this woman. In the legends, she was like an evil witch that would take children and like who lost like teeth and stuff of that. In the actual like as this movie goes on, you find out that like she was actually burned, like she was actually a good witch. She was like a woman that lived out in the woods that would help heal people and like would take the teeth from children in the village in exchange for treats and stuff like that. And that got her the moniker of the Tooth Fairy. But then she was branded a witch and burned at the stake, and her spirit came back to basically like haunt and torment the village by stealing children away if they weren't protected by a source of light. Like she could only attack you if you were in darkness.
Mhm.
So it's I kind of like, maybe it's just because I like that the premise of that movie, and like I feel like that is like for this story particularly, this is like just like a legit creepypasta. Using a little bit of that to this, like to like give Goze-San an actual like a twisting of her nature, or a twisting of her of her her afterlife or her legacy, to kind of like add more to like why she's now a boogeyman in this area rather than just calling it Goze-San, because it seemed like Goze-San weren't bad, like they were good, they were a good organization. So
Yeah.
yeah, it seems weird. It's just it's odd that like this one's just making it a boogeyman. But
the story
Yeah.
also isn't. I don't know if it's referring to a singular entity at all. Is it?
Yeah. Well, again, we don't know because like it's a little iffy with the translation.
Yeah.
So maybe it is referring to Goze-San as a singular entity, separate from that is similar but is separate from the Goze-San organization
I don't
of
know, man.
people. Yeah, so it's a little wishy-washy in the story. But I guess this kind of goes into our final thoughts then. This is honestly why I'm going to partially recommend it. Like this time around, it's got an edge of spookiness, but it's more, but because it's so like because our narrator is so distanced from the actual like spookiness, like they are an outside observer of the actual events and such. And I found it more like interesting, and it like the whole like the what I looked into after like while I was reading the story, like looked about Goze-San and looked about like the chocolate vine and stuff like that. Like I found that really interesting, and like I'm glad I read that. And the only creepy like elements of the story kind of stem from the ending that tries to go with this like, what if those guys didn't run away? What if they were taken by Goze-San? Or like that's at the core of the story. Like that's where what's trying to kind of present is that like these guys fucked up and were taken by this thing because they were doing something bad, and our narrator is like an outside observer observing it literally like kilometers away through binoculars.
Yeah.
So like it's a cool, whimsically creepy sort of thing for me. So I really can't fully recommend it on creepy factor alone. Also, there were a few more grammar issues in the story than I was used to with a Kowabana version of the translation. I was a little surprised by it, and it kind of caught me off guard. But I do love the core idea it is trying to. I feel like it's trying to get across, and I would love to use this as like inspiration for a game scenario, like a horror scenario where you're actually playing as the thieves trying to steal this old iron bell from a temple, and then it turns out that it's actually able to summon this like entity, or summon the ghosts of dead children that are all around it, and suddenly you're being attacked by like by little like cherubim like horrible monsters.
Or just summon mundane kung fu bards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you summon like an entire like maybe there's like a group of like spectral or like phantom like ring raids, but Goze-San. So like that's why I'm partially recommending the story, and not straight up not recommending the stories, because I love the core idea of the story and I love how interesting it is. It's just not very scary. As a reader, like it's maybe it's because I'm not of the culture. Maybe there'd be a little bit more spookiness to it, like if I was like of the culture or something like that. But as it is, I can only partially recommend this. So, Mikey, these stands for evil.
All right. So, unfortunately, this is for me super mundane.
Of course.
And I mean the thieves accidentally drop the bell. It rings, and everyone within so many miles of it can hear the bell.
Yeah.
So it's like an alarm system going off. So like, oh, we gotta get out of here. Leave the bell.
It is weird that they didn't take their van.
Yeah, they just run.
You gotta admit that it is very strange that they in their panic they just like let's just scatter and just ran off into the woods.
Yep.
Rather than run to their van and just get the fuck out of Dodge. But in their
Well, it might
Dodge.
have been
Sorry, I had to throw that in there. Sorry, I'll shut up.
well, if they're thieves, it could have been a stolen van to begin with. So,
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
so I mean, all super mundane. And then the what if is interesting, but at the same time, to me, that the fact that it states that at the end makes me go, okay, well, if he's wondering if it is, then it most likely isn't. So it just
okay, yeah. Like you have a very like we have very different like, so like what, if he says that, maybe he's insinuating that it is.
I'm not saying it's aliens,
but it's alien. I am very much that guy.
Yeah.
Whereas Mikey is just like no, you're an idiot.
yeah, exactly.
You're supposed to agree with me.
How's it feel?
Anyway.
Yeah.
So moving on, I'm not going to recommend this because nothing really scary happens for me. Like the scariest part is parents basically gouging out the eyes of their kids and leaving them at a temple to be taken care of.
In the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't seem like it's a practice done in the modern day.
That we know of.
That we know
or
of.
Is it?
Or what if?
Yeah. Seems like that's a tagline for this now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Or like what if the bandits were found eventually, but they were found, their bodies were found with their eyes gouged out. Like now I know what the monster, what the Vossen creature is going to like do like when it catches victims. It's just going to like gouge their eyes out. But yeah.
Yeah.
The eyes are the windows to the soul. So by gouging them out, you're effectively breaking the windows so they can get to the soul.
They're just breaking in. They're also
yeah. Yes. Oh, it's karma. It's just all karma. Sorry, I'm still on that mode. I apologize. But yeah. I mean, I don't disagree with you, Mikey, on this. Like I understand why you don't recommend it, because like to you it's very mundane. The story also, like creep factor wise, like spooky factor wise, it's kind of lukewarm. Like I admit that. So, but yeah. And gamer.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna stay where I was with like a low partial, because I like the concept behind it. I want to like it, but there's a lot of reasons because like there is a lot of reasons for me to like it, but at the end of the day, I don't even know if there was or what supernatural creepy aspect was in play here. Like the premise of and the history of everything of the bell, that's great, and I like the idea of it, but it didn't really go where I wanted it to go. That's kind of selfish on me, but
Yeah.
just because like there was no creature in this, and there was no like it's all hearsay as we've said multiple times.
Yeah.
I kind of need more info about what's going on.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of setup here. Well, okay, there actually wasn't a lot of setup here because we I the setup that I have of like what a Goze-San is and what like and all that stuff. I had to look that up.
Yeah,
but like there was some setup here and like not a lot of follow through on like an actual like what's this like it's like this guy just like got kind of the guy sounds like he was more like nostalgic than scared throughout the story.
Yeah,
about his past, like about his childhood and like where he grew up and stuff like that, rather than the story being spooky. Like, oh, there's that time that those three guys tried to like steal the bell, and then they dropped it and set it off an alarm, but sent everybody running, and they end up just vanishing off in the woods. But what if the Goze-San, this boogeyman I remember from my childhood, what if it got them? Like that's it. Like that's the story. But
much,
like, yeah.
And maybe this story would hit a lot better if you are a Japanese person, because you would have all the context right at the get-go. You wouldn't have to basically hit the brakes to bring up Google a couple of times. They would just keep going, and the flow would be better. But yeah, I want to like it, but I was confused too much. I had to Google a lot, and even doing that, I still didn't know what was going on. And
now,
like we had to get through this discussion to get to some connections in it, but even still, I still don't know if the story is trying to say like what actually happened to the story, if they actually just ran away, if there actually is a creature that they're referring to in the scary stories, or it's just the Goze-San group as a whole take people. Like even like the spooky story itself doesn't sound like it's meant to be a singular supernatural entity. It's just like this group of people will take you away if you don't behave.
Well, yeah, and that's a common boogeyman thing. But like, why? Like, it doesn't. Maybe there's a context that we're not getting as people who aren't Japanese. Like, is there a spooky element to the Goze-San like organization that we're not aware of, or is it just like because so much time has passed since like their decline to like when the story came when these families are like living and stuff, that the Goze-San has become something of has been kind of tainted or twisted for some reason, like,
or just like because of how like dark it was back then, like parents gouging the eyes out and leaving them at a temple, like that itself is spooky story worthy.
Yeah,
because of how screwed up that is, and they're just using actual history. To make their kids behave.
Yeah, and like also that's more on like honestly like the spooky like that is it, from that point of view. It seems like the villagers or the country folk are using the Goze-San as a scapegoat for their own fucking like historical trauma, crimes, because like they're the ones gouging their kids' eyes out and leaving them at a bell to potentially be taken by this by this group.
Yeah.
So it's like the group's doing it as a charity thing to try and like help like unfortunate children.
People are like abusing it though.
Yeah, exactly. That's honestly that seems to be the more the historical horror of it, if that's the case for the story. But like, as the story is as it is, it's sort of like that potential's there, but it's not enacted on.
Yeah.
So
I think moving forward, I need to stop. I'm just gonna stop there. I just need to stop. No, I need to stop like putting myself in a time, locking myself in a time or a time frame, or assuming that it's gonna be a spooky monster or anything. I need to wait and let the story tell me what everything is, not go in there assuming.
Yeah,
I feel like I would like it better in that case as well.
I agree. I think by like I even like had to stop myself. I was like, what the hell is a Goze-San? All right, let's see if the story actually gets to that point. And for the most part, it did. Like, it didn't explain what a Goze-San is, but it did explain the importance of what Goze-San does in this context of the story.
Yes.
Is that if you ring the bell, it summons Goze-San and they take away children. So, but yeah, I think you might it might help your perspective on certain stories a little bit more if you do let the story play out first.
Yeah, before jumping to conclusions or
Yeah.
thinking in my head what I want this to be, because then if it isn't that, I'll be disappointed.
Yeah.
So it's partly my fault, but yeah, I'm still in its current form. I'm not going to recommend it just because I was super confused.
Yeah.
And it took a while to actually get it, but I like the historical aspect of it, and we learned some things, and that part's cool. And there is fodder here for a story, for a potentially creepy story. It could be even a mundane creepy story of like some Goze-San finding out once they grow up what their parents did to them, and then they kind of go nuts and they like hunt them down or something like that, and it's like a Jason Voorhees situation.
Yeah, basically becomes like a revenant.
Yeah, there's ways to take it, but it doesn't take any of them. You know?
Yeah,
that's my real problem with it.
Yeah, again, it's just like there's nothing malicious that's really described in this story. Like Goze-San takes children, but they take children that are blinded, and like it seems like a good thing when they when this thing takes the children. So that, and yeah, there's supposedly ghost children around the bell and stuff, but like they're just playing around. It seems like there's not much anything like maliciously spookier.
Yeah, they're just enjoying their best afterlife they can.
Yeah. Yeah, it's again, I'm kind of with you guys. Like it's very lukewarm, but like it has a cool idea behind it that I wanted to really like.
Yes.
So I guess that's why it's only going to be one partial recommendation, and then otherwise wouldn't recommend. For this week's episode, like it's really interesting, but needed more. But that'll be this week's episode. So if you like what you heard, or if you didn't, leave us a comment in the comment section below where this gets posted, whether it be on Podbean, Facebook, YouTube, or Tumblr. We're all on Twitter. Mikey is at the E stands for evil. The Gamer in Yellow is at the Gamer in Yellow, but without that W at the end, because name is very long.
Yeah.
And I'm at Review Cultist. And if you'd like to send us emails, send them to aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's ALDENTERIGAMORTS@gmail.com. Where you can also leave us suggestions for other creepypastas, SCPs, spooky things. You creep it, we'll peep it. Yeah. And if you'd like to help support our show financially, you can go to Patreon. Look up Al Dente Rigor Mortis and select the backer tier you'd like to support us at. We have $2 and $5 tiers with special episodes, early access, extra content. To our patrons that are helping support the show, thank you immensely. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay. And as always, we very much appreciate that. And to the authors of these stories, and to our listeners and the authors of these stories, thank you immensely. Because without your listenership, it'd be like screaming into the void. And without your stories that you post on like 2chan or another Japanese creepypasta forum, and to Kowabana for translating these creepypastas to a different language so that people of that language can enjoy it. Thank you immensely, because without your writings and without your translations, we really wouldn't have much of a show because we'd have nothing to talk about. So thank you. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, the E stands for evil.
And I'm the Gamer in Yellow.
And this has been Al Dente Rigor Mortis. Sayonara. Sleep well.